On a bright, quiet morning at Fort Bradley, a celebration meant to honor Sergeant Mason Hale's courage is minutes away, yet something in his chest feels dangerously wrong. Just before stepping onto the stage, he finds a plain, nameless envelope waiting for him, placed with deliberate precision. The message inside drags him back to a night overseas he has spent years trying to bury, a night tied to a missing girl no one else ever knew about. As the crowd rises to applaud him, Mason's hands shake with a truth only he can see. Someone out there knows what happened. By the time he reaches the final line of the letter, he already knows what he must do: walk away from everything. On the parade field of Fort Bradley, sunlight spilled across the rows of folding chairs like a promise Mason Hale wished he could trust. The brass band warmed up in sharp metallic bursts, and the American flag snapped crisply in the mild Texas wind. Everything looked perfect, too perfect, he thought, as if the bass had spent weeks polishing a reality he didn't quite fit into. Today they were supposed to celebrate him, call him a hero, hand him a medal he never believed he deserved. And yet, beneath the surface of the ceremony's warm glow, something inside him pulsed with unease. He stood behind the stage, away from the crowd, adjusting the neatly pressed uniform that suddenly felt too tight across his chest. His palms were damp. His throat felt stiff. He kept telling himself it was normal. Every soldier got nerves before stepping in front of hundreds of people. But this felt different. This felt like the body remembering something the mind refused to say aloud. "Sergeant Hale?" a young private called out, jogging toward him with a clipboard tucked under one arm. "5 minutes, sir. The colonel wants you ready near the steps." Mason nodded, though the words barely registered. "Got it." The private hesitated as if expecting small talk, then hurried off. Mason watched him disappear behind rows of perfectly aligned chairs, past the podium decorated with red, white, and blue ribbons. Families chatted excitedly. Children pointed at the medals pinned to strangers' chests, and the world looked peaceful enough to hurt. He took one quiet breath, then another. He should have been proud. He should have been grateful. Instead, he felt like a man standing in borrowed skin. Then he saw it, an envelope tucked beneath the water bottle on the small table beside him. Plain white. Unmarked. Not creased. Not dirty. Not something accidentally left behind. It was placed there. Intentionally. His heartbeat shifted, heavy and uneven. He reached for it slowly, almost against his own will. The paper was cool from the shade, thin enough to feel the single sheet inside. No name, no unit stamp, no handwriting on the front. A silence wrapped around him as he slid his thumb under the flap. When he pulled out the letter, his vision tightened at the edges. "Mason, you don't know me, but I know what happened the night she disappeared." He froze. The words blurred before sharpening again. "You left something behind overseas. Something unfinished. Something still alive." His throat went dry. His pulse thudded painfully in his ears. No one knew about that night. No one knew about the girl. He had never told a soul. Not his squad. Not his commanding officer. Not even himself on the nights he tried to forget. It had been easier to bury the memory under duty and discipline. His fingers trembled as he kept reading. "If you want the truth, if you still care, you need to walk away from the stage. Right now, before it's too late." He felt the ground shift under him. The sounds of the ceremony grew distant. The chatter, the laughter, the harmless joy of families, untouched by the things soldiers carried home. Everything drifted like a fading radio signal. He read the final line. "She sets alive." But not for long. Mason gripped the edge of the table to stay upright. A breeze swept through the field, rattling the metal stands. The band began its ceremonial piece, brassy and triumphant. Mason barely heard it. He stared at the letter again, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something rational, something ordinary. But the message refused to soften. Alive. Not for long. A memory flickered. Sandstorms, distant gunfire, a dimly lit alley where a terrified girl clutched his sleeve. He had promised her safety. He had promised he'd return, but the mission had shifted. Orders had changed, and by morning she was gone. No trace, no explanation. Just absence, heavy and merciless. "Mason," someone called from the stage. The colonel, waiting. He folded the letter with trembling precision and slid it inside his uniform pocket, where the metal was supposed to lie. He felt its weight press against his chest, like a verdict. He took one step toward the stage, then stopped. His breath shuddered in his lungs. Applause rose as his name was announced, a tidal wave of expectation rolling toward him. He couldn't move. The letter's words coiled around him like a wire tightening at the throat. He looked at the families, at the proud faces, at the children waving tiny flags, all of them waiting for him, believing in him, celebrating him. And yet the only image burning in his mind was the girl's eyes, wide, desperate, full of trust he didn't deserve. He turned away from the stage. One step, then another. Each footfall felt like breaking a contract with the world. Voices behind him grew confused, then urgent. "Sergeant Hale! Mason! Where are you going?" He didn't answer. Couldn't set it. The sunlight felt colder as he crossed the edge of the parade field. He didn't know who wrote the letter. He didn't know what waited for him outside the base. But he knew this. Whoever sent it had ripped open the one truth he had never faced. And now it was too late to pretend the past was buried. He kept walking, toward the parking lot, toward the unknown, toward a story unfinished. The gravel crunched beneath his boots as he neared his truck, each sound amplified by the storm gathering inside him. He paused with his hand on the door handle, staring at the base behind him, the place that had shaped him, the place he was now abandoning without permission. The weight of that choice pressed hard, but the weight of the letter pressed harder. He looked down at his trembling hands. How could a few sentences unravel years of silence? How could one anonymous voice cut deeper into his chest than medals or duty ever had? One thought rose through the chaos. If there was any chance she was alive, he couldn't stay. The band's music swelled again, triumphant and blind to the truth, unfolding just beyond the stage. Mason slid into the driver's seat and shut the door, sealing himself away from the fading applause. It felt unreal, like he was leaving one world for another waiting beyond the fences of Fort Bradley. He started the engine, heart pounding. He didn't know where the path ahead would lead, but he knew this was the only road left. And as Mason pulled out of the lot, he didn't see the figure watching him from across the street, waiting for him to take the bait. Mason pressed down on the accelerator as the Texas highway stretched ahead, a sunlit ribbon carved through dust, grass, and memories he wished he could outrun. The address scrawled at the bottom of the letter lay on the passenger seat, fluttering with every gust from the open window. It shouldn't exist. The farmhouse tied to that address had been abandoned years ago, burned in a storm, left to rot. Yet someone had written it with precision Mason couldn't dismiss. With every mile, the past returned like heat, shimmering on the horizon. He saw flashes of the girl, small hands gripping his sleeve, desperate eyes reflecting mortar fire, the trembling voice asking if he was one of the good ones. He had said yes. He had meant it, but orders had forced him to leave, and by dawn she had vanished into a war zone that swallowed innocence without apology. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Guilt pressed against his ribs until breathing felt like betrayal. He told himself not to believe the letter's claim, not to let hope play tricks on him. But the words repeated anyway, burned into his mind. If you don't come now, you'll never see her alive again. The highway signs blurred. One pointed toward a small town he knew well, a place where he used to grab coffee after base shifts. He ignored it. He wasn't Mason Hale, decorated soldier. In this moment, he was the man who had failed a child and spent years pretending he hadn't. His phone buzzed on the seat. The bass. Again. He let it ring. He couldn't face questions, couldn't craft explanations. The colonel would demand answers he didn't have, and his unit would see the truth written across his face. He was chasing ghosts. A pickup truck passed him on the left, its engine rumbling. The driver, a man in a cowboy hat, gave him a curious glance. Mason realized he must look frantic in a way that didn't fit the image of a soldier in uniform. He lowered his gaze and exhaled shakily. The wind carried the scent of hot asphalt, cut grass, and something faintly metallic. The same metallic note lingering in his memory from the night overseas, the night the girl disappeared, the night he never forgave himself for. He turned off the main road and onto a smaller one, barely maintained. Gravel popped beneath the truck's tires. The scenery shifted from open plains to scattered oak trees casting long shadows. The sun drifted behind a cloud, dimming the world. Mason slowed when the mailbox appeared. A rusted metal box leaning like a wounded soldier. The numbers matched the ones on the letter perfectly. His chest tightened. This was it. He drove down the narrow dirt path, grass brushing the sides of his truck. Birds scattered from the fields as he passed, startled by the intrusion. Then he saw the farmhouse. It looked exactly as he remembered from reports years ago. Charred wood, collapsed porch, shattered windows staring like empty eyes. But there was something new. A truck parked beside it. Dark, modern, out of place. Mason parked several yards away and shut off the engine. The quiet wrapped around him, thick and wrong. He stepped out, boots sinking slightly into the dry earth. He scanned the area instinctively, training surfacing without thought. No movement, no voices, only the slow click of the building settling in the heat. He approached the porch carefully. Boards groaned beneath him. A memory flashed again. Sand, sirens, the girl's soft voice saying she was scared. He swallowed hard. "Hello?" he called out. His voice echoed hollowly. No answer. His hand touched the front door. It creaked open with a long sigh. Inside, the farmhouse smelled of dust, old wood, and something faintly medicinal, sterile in a place that should have held only decay. Sunlight seeped through broken windows, casting fractured lines across the floor. Mason Hale. The voice came from deeper inside. Calm, measured, unfamiliar. Mason stiffened. His pulse jumped. He followed the voice down a short hallway. His footsteps muffled by dirt. His senses sharpened. He felt watched. The hallway opened into what used to be a living room. Most of the furniture was broken or missing, but a single chair sat in the center. On it, someone waited. A woman. Not young, not old. Her hair pulled into a low braid. Her face shadowed by incomplete light. She sat with one leg crossed over the other, as if she had all the time in the world. "You came faster than I expected," she said. Mason studied her. "Who are you?" She tilted her head slightly. "Someone who knows what you left behind." His stomach dropped. "The girl. She's Seps why you stir here." He took a step forward. "Where is she?" The woman didn't set answer immediately. Instead, she watched him with unsettling calm, eyes sharp. "You care about her," she said. "Even after all these years." "She was a child," Mason snapped. "Of course I care." A faint smile touched her lips. "Good. You still need that." "Where is she?" he repeated. The woman leaned forward just enough for the light to catch her face. A thin scar traced her jawline. "She's Seps alive," she said softly. "But you Seps are not the only one looking for her." Mason Sackett's heartbeat stuttered. "Who else?" "The people who took her," she replied. "The ones you were never told about. They're back, and if they find her first," she let the sentence hang. Mason clenched his fists. "Tell me where she is." "I will," the woman said. But once you step through the next door, there's no turning back. This isn't SIP's military protocol. It isn't SIP's democracy mission. It isn't SIP's the truth you were never supposed to uncover. Mason's breath trembled. The weight of the moment pressed down. The woman rose slowly from the chair, dust drifting from her clothes. She pointed toward a door on the far side of the room. "She's SIP's waiting," she said. "And so is everything you tried to forget." Mason hesitated, the silence stretching thin around him. Then he moved toward the door, each step echoing across the hollow room. For a moment, he couldn't breathe, caught between dread and impossible hope. The air felt charged, stretching thin as a wire between past and present. Every step he had taken, every mile he had driven, led to this threshold, this moment where truth hovered just inches beyond his grasp. He reached for the handle, then froze. A silhouette sat in the shadows beyond, small, unmoving, familiar in a way that stopped his heart. He whispered her name,